So Easy Rock just showed up because he would show up to this practice that they would have at a Korean church, and
it wasn't Victory Outreach.
no, that was in Anaheim.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a few different places to practice, and back then this was right before Easy Rock moved to L.A. So he was living in Anaheim. Okay, and then that was the early phases of like the B-Boy Summit and him in Asia with Eternal 2. So that was that era. And then meanwhile, the formative years of West Coast rockers. But I would just kind of show up just to see what, like, Kulski would hit me up like, yo, we're going to be over at blah, blah, blah. Like, all right. But I wouldn't go there and dance. Occasionally I would, but it wasn't the kind of vibe for me. I was already going to, like the clubs in LA and, like, wanting to hit other things. Mm-hmm. They were still getting their, like, little sessions on. Mm. And when it comes to sessions, for me, it's a little more intimate. So you got to be my motherfucker to be like, yo, let's get busy and shit. Let's experiment. I wasn't so like public with the practice things like they were, but Easy Rock would show up. Kulski would be there, and this was all like all those kids were influenced by their greatness because they were already pretty established in their style, especially Easy Rock, and Kulski. So they see them as like their teachers. I was just there, you know what I'm saying? And being that I influenced Kulski in an indirect way, he doesn't dance like me. He was just like, I got down with Dino for a few years and out came the style, which is, whatever it was in the 90s for Kulski. So, yeah.
That's, can you touch on that hip hop shop that Easy Rock was a part of out here in Orange County?
Yeah,
or was it Fullerton?
No, that was in Santa Ana. It was
Santa Ana.
Funky Revolution, I think it was called. And that was with a couple of like the local writers and stuff. And somebody's dad put up a shop. Easy Rock was running it. I went there a couple times.
How was it inside? What did they have?
I think they just had merchant like gear.
Did they have Pumas?
You know what?
Because at the hip hop shop, they were selling Pumas and they have fat laces and fat caps, but in the glass container.
Well, interesting. Before that time, Easy Rock actually had a little airbrush stand / hip hop shop over at the Stanton Indoor, and I was the one that first gave them that connection for the fat laces because I was getting the fat laces from Compton Indoor Swap Meet. So I was going to Compton Indoor, unbeknownst to anybody, and I was coming up on all these fat laces. So the dude at the booth was like, man, why don't you just order them from my connection? And I still have that business card. It said Max Trading Company. That's where I was getting my fat laces. And then Easy Rock was like, yo, I want to put them in here, in his airbrush thing. And then I gave him the connect eventually. And then he started ordering or whatever. So that was in Stanton. But after that was the Funky Revolution. I showed up there a few times for a couple of events, but I wasn't like really up in that whole thing. Some of the local writers, that were more like not really like graffiti artists that would piece up. They were just writing all over. They were kind of more in that scene, and that was a really weird era too, where it was a mixture of. So you gotta understand, it's like people have an image of Orange County. If you're not from Orange County, you have this image of Orange County. You gotta understand, like there's cities and hoods in Orange County. It's not all coastal and South Orange County. It's like you go to like Santa Ana, Anaheim, Buena Park, Fullerton. It's like Anaheim, Fullerton, and Santa Ana, Buena Park. You experience like more of a gang street, party kind of culture. It's not like the surf culture or the skate culture. There was something happening, and that's what I was kind of more in tune with. Being in Orange County, it's like so we were just kind of like I guess you could say a bit rebellious with what we were doing. But what I was trying to get at is that a lot of in the 80s for me, a lot of the foundation also came from gang culture. The gangsters that had the cholo writing, that's who first helped me with my first. They used to call me Mr. Dino because they're saying like I was a little man. So I would write Mr. Dino in like them cholo letters. This is like,
you know what's crazy though? When I didn't want people to know that I was Mikey Ice, I used to go out and tag with the Sharpie Mr. X.
okay, yeah. So yeah. So there's, and we could go on about all my different like names and all this stuff, but we won't get into that. But I guess what I'm trying to sum up in saying was that throughout the 80s and 90s, you know, experiencing the music and the culture wasn't just simply like, oh, for me, it wasn't. It wasn't just simply about breaking and hip hop. It was like gang life, you know, the culture in certain hoods and little pockets, you know, whether it's Anaheim, Fullerton, or Buena Park, little pockets. But around you is that diversity, you know, just normal American families, working class stuff. You go up the hills, there is like a higher income brackets, and
yes,
you know, and it's all within like
Cypress.
10 minutes. Well, Cypress is a little more that way. Cypress has its own, like they're a little further out.
Tustin's Orange County too.
Yeah,
right?
and they're further south. You know, so you know, each little pocket communities are all different. You know, and you could go like 10 minutes that way, and you're in the hood. You go 10 minutes this way, and you're like okay. You know, so Orange County in certain areas was dangerous. You know, 80s and 90s. You know, and not so much in the 2000s or anything, but yeah, you know, there was some hoods.
In the 90s, was there any hip hop clubs where everybody can go, even though if it was teens? In Orange County, not LA.
I would say that was mostly happening more in the early 90s. There was a lot of teen clubs in the early 90s.
Can you name off the top ones?
You know what? If I go into that, we're going to go into my whole nightlife thing, and it just go into a whole nother direction. But there was a lot of teen clubs.
Can you name off one? Because I can name off one in the Valley. It was called The Network.
Okay.
Bro, it was 16 and over, and on Saturdays, they used to film it.
Okay.
So on Saturdays, if you had cable, you can watch yourself dance. And it was called The Network.
Yeah. There was a few. There was like Kaleidoscope. There was High Tops. There was everyone used to always go to Studio K too. You know, I was there for K Rave in '93. I was there.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah, they had a freaking rave inside of Knott's Berry Farm.
Was DJ Irene there?
I don't remember who the lineup was, but it was a pretty good lineup. You know. But even before that, I would say more the Palace was. I think it was a 16 and over club where I first where I first met Iceman. I think that was 16 and over. Yeah. So and there was a lot of dancers that would show up there. Some of the best dancing I've ever seen came out of that club in Anaheim, and I've seen a whole lot of dancing in the past 40 some years. Some of the best dancing I've ever seen was during the years of like 1990, 91, 92.
I want to share a little secret with you. Easy Rock told me, but then also when I met Zulu Gremlin, he told me, Easy Rock told me the first time he met Iceman, his name was Ice Mike.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
A lot of people don't know that. When I first met him, I met Iceman at Long Beach City College, and the name of the event was called Floor Wars. Okay. It was thrown by Fresh. And Zulu Gremlin comes up to me and said, Mikey Ice, this is Ice Mike.
Oh, okay.
And we looked at each other and like, I got stuck. Because I never heard anybody that came close to my name but reverse.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Mikey Ice, Ice Mike.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then later on, I guess he changed it to Iceman.
Yeah.
But that's a true story.
That's awesome. The only recollection I have of that, and this is a clear, distinct memory, inside of that club, the Palace in Anaheim, it was I'm trying to remember, it was 91 or 92. But, I mean, 91, 92. It's like very short, window. I do remember this, is that I'm standing with one of my crew members, this dude named Betrock. Standing next to him, and we're looking to the left, and I'm watching Iceman, okay, doing his little, and then the way he was dropping, and what we were talking about, because we were kind of like peeping, we were talking about how, like, damn, look at this dude, the way he dropped. Look how, like, he just drops into his windmills and shit. And we're just checking him out, like, and I'm looking at him like he's got, like, that 80s style, too. So what was happening during the hour, and this is important, too, was that a lot of, even though the predominant style was freestyle and housing, a lot of B-boys or breakers started resurfacing. Iceman, Easy Rock, Cool Ski. I'm talking about just Orange County, but their impact was also felt like in all the surrounding cities, right? So they started resurfacing, and that was the revival breaking. Because who was the most impactful during that time? You know what I'm saying? It was cats like Easy Rock. It was cats like Cool Ski. And then on the LA side, LA's a different story. Sure, I would venture off into LA because it seemed like that was more so of a hardcore. Like you would have to go to LA to experience LA hip hop, because to me it was just all Southern California. But in Orange County, there wasn't so much of that like available, because Orange County was still relatively more conservative and sterile back then. You know, especially it's like 80s and 90s, but by the early 90s, we was going out to LA. Mid 90s, Club Unity, going to all them hardcore ass fucking.
Fullerton Gardens.
Florentine Gardens back then was more of a dancey dance, kind of like.
That's where Caesar and them started breaking again.
Yeah, from what I remember. Like I said, I was more in Orange County.
I never went.
Yeah. From what I remember, it was more like a dance club, not so much like hardcore hip hop. It was just like.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and I don't mind that either, because I also grew up in that culture too. Like I said, I don't want to get into my nightlife because that's just a whole nother. That's just a whole nother world. You know what I'm saying? Like it's somewhat relevant because it's all music related, but the house, the techno, and all the other stuff I was doing. It wasn't so much like, even though my basis was that, funk and hip hop, I also ventured off into like the warehouse party scene of the early 90s.
That's when I seen Hayes. They would call me Hamburger Helper, and he had a song called "Jump," the movement.
Oh yeah.
This group was called the Movement.
Yeah,
and they used to call
with
him Hamburger
Vision
Helper.
And yeah. So that's when actually that scene started kind of blowing up. But that's a whole nother thing, brother. Like that right there, and I was on the front lines of that too. Just as a dancer, because I didn't mind dancing to techno and house. Like I loved all that. You know what I'm saying? And it didn't make me less hip hop. Back then, some hip hoppers would diss me and be like, "Oh man," I'm like, I'm not that goofy motherfucker in the Mickey Mouse gloves and all that shit. I'm just there because I'm liking this music.
Bro, I went to those raves because I know there was girls.
Yeah.
Girls.
Yeah.
Like lots of them.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what?
It's what was happening.
Yeah. I didn't care about the backlash. I was like, well, I'm going to the rave.
No, I had zero. No, I would go to where the energy was. And
we was battling the dudes with the glow sticks too. They were coming hard with the Pumas, because during that time, a lot of the ravers were dressed like taggers, and sometimes people couldn't distinguish like who the taggers were or the breakers were, because everybody was wearing flared pants.
Yeah.
Bangs.
I think what happened.
Pumas and fat laces. They literally looked like us.
Oh God, it was horrible though. They would choke them up and just they'd look goofy and shit. And I think what was happening was that when somebody gets a hold of something, they start creating weird hybrids of what we do and shit. You know what I'm saying? And that just got out of control. And that's when you start seeing people like Hex from the Hip Hop Shop saying heck no to techno, yet you'd go to a hip hop event and they're playing Cybertron. You know what I'm saying? That's Detroit techno. So kind of didn't make sense to me. So I was like, no, I love techno. What I don't like is these goofy motherfuckers misrepresenting our fashion. I wasn't down with that, and I think that's where some people were getting kind of like confused, because they're like, oh, a raver, that them goofy kids like with the flared out pants and the Pumas wearing our shit all wrong. It's like, no, I get you, man, but the music, and the parties, I was having fun. You know what I'm saying? But shit, you want to test me? Put on some fucking Public Enemy. I'll serve your ass and shit. You know what I'm saying? Back then. Because I can go get my house on, but I'll straight up take your shit out if you put on the right hip hop music too, you know? So I was kind of versatile.
We used to like to switch rooms, because some of the parties up north, there was the techno room, the hip hop room, and the trip hop room. Every room at those warehouses had a different genre of music. They were playing trip hop, they were playing trance, deep house.
I wasn't so much into trance, but when I really got into it was going into the, like in 96, 97, 98, 99, was going to the LA jungle parties. Jungle, drum and bass, so that's when I got heavy into that sound. And you know what? Sometimes that shit does make me want to break. You know what I'm saying? And if I broke some kind of unwritten rule, whatever. I mean, I dance different to it, but sometimes I'll be hitting my moves, you know, because it just made me do that, you know. When I'm housing, you know, sometimes I'll kind of just, you know, slide into something or whatever. But I think the music I listen to, you know, makes me do different things. But we always kind of embedded in us are our signature moves. You know what I'm saying? And we could just freestyle them anytime, you know. So yeah, I loved it all.
You know what? Even though I was super hardcore hip hop, I think it was Sons of Berserk. I think they and Jungle Brothers came out with "Girl, I'll House You," and Queen Latifah had "Don't Make Me Wait, Come Into My House."
Yeah, that was
Give me body, and that's when I kind of said, you know what? If black people's down with it, I seen like the Jungle Brothers, Queen Latifah, they were adding in that house element.
Well,
so that made me say, you know what? I'm going to cross over too.
Well, house and techno, for the first productions of that was all black music.
Chicago,
Detroit, New York, L.A., whatever. It was mostly brothers doing that shit.
Right.
And you can quote me on that, and they'll say it too.
Oh, it's all true.
You know what I'm saying? But we were a reflection even of that, because even when that era was coming out, when I first got into acid house, I was like, we were bleaching our pants out with like house, acid, and happy faces and stuff. But we'll hip house our asses off. But like I said, put on some Big Daddy Kane and it's on too.
Yeah.
Throw on some other hip hop, is on. But you throw on a little hip house, I get my shit onto that too. Never an issue with it. It's just what happens is that when people kind of like, I was a little more versatile, just to say that, but I was definitely authentic and everything, because if you look at the people I influenced and what they did, and they're 100% hip hop, cool, but you trace the lineage back, and it goes back to Dino. It's like, I'm just about dance.
And you know what's crazy? When I really started getting involved with style elements up north, a lot of people that was outside of Modesto, like from Miami, New York, Chicago, they was dissing style elements though, bro, because they used to say Ramai had that chicken scratch style, which it was like, it was very, he said like, it was very jerky, and then Donnie didn't do, he was just kind of like all over the place, and Quality was always dancing to house though too. So a lot of East Coast crews, like they were dissing, it was like, niggas is doing that house style beat. It was like, it ain't real breaking, but when they got out there and they put on like some hip hop, they was serving everybody with that, especially Ramai. Yeah. I seen him dismantle like 6 people by himself.
Yes, bro. Definitely. I think
on that house, dancing the house style, the real housey style on top.
Right.
Even when they battle Housing Authority.
Right.
Style elements versus Housing Authority in Oakland.
Okay. It's interesting. I think that in the end, it all comes down to, is it whack or is it dope? And in this case, it was dope. And it was something that perhaps somebody with a limited capacity of what is what can't accept an evolutionary style coming in. You know what I'm saying? And in the end, when you measure it, if you have like that background that I have, I could look at something that's just fucking whack. I don't care how hybrid, evolved it is, it's just whack. Or I could look at something that is evolved and experimental, something like that shit's fucking dope. Like the first time I ever seen David Elsewhere, because we were in the same crew called 17th Parallel in Santa Ana. David Elsewhere, Detour's video, those cats, when I first saw David Elsewhere, my jaw dropped. I was like, scene, and little did I know I was seeing something that would impact the whole world, because he influenced the whole world eventually. Kind of like how you were mentioning style elements. Sure, if you don't understand it, your first response is to diss it. What the fuck is this? But it's because you're just not wrapping your head around it. You don't understand it, because it wasn't whack. It was actually just maybe something so far left that you didn't understand it. Whereas other people that had the capacity for were like, damn, that's a dope style, or damn, this is a dope experimental style, and things are evolving. Good thing that nobody listened to the fucking purists, because if that's the case, the way breaking has evolved and hip hop and everything, it wouldn't have happened. It would have stayed this small. You know what I'm saying? But it took a brave motherfucker like your boys and some of the people I know out here in Orange County to be like, we're challenging that shit. Fuck that. And my shit's gonna be dope. Mm-hmm. You know, even if it isn't your criteria. Mm. Yeah, we got motherfuckers that do stick to your criteria, and we got these other dudes, and we got these cats over here, and they're doing something different. You know, and
Divine
like I said,
Styler.
Like my, in the late '80s, I was influenced by the Divine Styler and the Scheme Team. They're totally experimental. They represented, for anybody that doesn't know, look up Divine Styler Ain't Saying Nothing. Look up the video, okay? Because they'll play it at breaking jams, and I'll see people breaking to it, but that's not how I witnessed it. In 1989, 1990, the dancing was different. It was experimental, it was abstract, it was freestyle. 1988, 89, 90, there was that beginning of freestyle, you know? Mm. So when I hear Ain't Saying Nothing, I don't dance, I don't break to that. I dance different to that. You know what I'm saying? When I hear Divine Styler music, I dance different to that. If I hear Egyptian Lover music, you know, I want to get my little freak on. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to go and do a head slide and shit. Or maybe I will. But, you know, it's like, I just want to like,
right.
You know? And if you don't come from that kind of background and all you know is a gym session, you won't understand the full array of dance. You know what I'm saying? You don't understand the backyard parties. You won't understand the 80s and 90s teen clubs. You won't understand the undergrounds, because all your experience was inside of a gym. And then the competition. Gym, competition. Gym, competition. Not everybody, but, you know, where skill building was more important than culture, you know? Mm. Because I do see some amazing stuff that I could only have imagined doing, certain moves. And I think right now with breaking, the skill level is like, boom! But the spirit of hip-hop is like right here. Whereas when growing up in the 80s and 90s, you know, the spirit of hip-hop was right there with the moves. You know, and that included...
For me, it was stronger.
Right.
Because honestly, when I was first coming up, I had the knee spin, I had the hand glide, but the spirit was so strong. I knew that I didn't have handcuffs to head spins or 1990s, but in my mind, I used to write Puma on my jacket like with a Sharpie.
Right.
I used to wash my fat laces in the sink.
Right.
It was the spirit. The spirit was higher for me.
Right. So then that's when we start getting into the conversation of what energy was happening.
Right.
And what was you know, when I started dancing, there wasn't no motive. It just felt good. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I carried with me. Whereas if you started in 2005, there's a different motive. Mm. You know what I'm saying? And then throughout those 3 decades, man, I'm spitting all over the place. Excuse me for that. Throughout those 3 decades, the industry started forming. So then there's that element coming in of where, you know, the reason why you're doing this isn't just for spirit and energy reasons. You have other motives. You know, you want the competition. You want the audition. You want to go and do these outside things that, from our experience, it was all hood. Mm. It was all in our neighborhoods. It was the kids next to us. There was no industry. I said it before. You could quote me on this. I said hip-hop was an energy before it became an industry. Hip-hop was an energy before it became an industry. So we knew it as an energy. And we were just like, you know, electric with that. You know what I'm saying? And we were the real rebels. Because back then, I could count, well, after the first wave of when everybody started breaking, by like the mid-'80s, late 80s, early 90s, I could count like on 2 hands all the dopest dancers. That's it. Now there's a bunch of like talent out there, right? So you got to remember, these perspectives are coming from somebody that was there during the birthing of this, the inception, here in Southern California.
And you know what I do like about early 90s, before I started hearing about crews, everything was tribe.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was no, I didn't even hear the word crew until maybe about 96.
Yeah.
But from 1990 to 1996, everything was Tribe.
Right.
Bam Tribe, Lunacy Tribe, Jughead Tribe.
Right. Here,
Everything was
in
Tribe.
Orange County, I know a lot of people overlook the dancers out of Cerritos. Cerritos gets a lot of acknowledgement for the DJs that came out of Cerritos, like the beat junkies. You know, most of them cats came out of Cerritos, but you know, we would take the bus 30 over to Cerritos Mall and like peep out the scene over there. It was like in the late 80s, and there's a lot of stories with my connection to Cerritos that there's just too many. But there was so many. Just what's the best word to say it? Interesting, experimental character. Like it was really when you danced, you knew like everybody was so individual. And that sounds kind of cliche, like, oh, you gotta have character. Yeah. No. This is real. Like they were dancing their real selves in their funky little ways, and
Right.
it wasn't so polished, and maybe it wasn't so clean, but it was just fun and creative, for lack of a more interesting term. Their creativity level was just ridiculous. You know
what really captured my mind during that time when I seen it on the West Coast, and I knew that it just blew me away, is when I seen the video Helluva.
Yeah.
With Brotherhood Creed.
Yeah.
I was looking at the dancers.
Yeah.
They were doing rubber bands. They was straight up.
They was getting it.
Dancing.
Yeah.
I never really seen that on the West Coast. I would see it on the East Coast with like Mariah Carey though, with the Mop Top Crew, with the video Someday, and you know, I would see people like you know, there's a lot of East Coast crews though, you know, but when I seen Brotherhood Creed and Def Jeff, give it to
Dropping Rhymes on Drums.
Dropping Rhymes
shout
on
out
drums.
to Soul Brothers, and a quick shout out to my best friend Tyrone Maximum. He was part of Brotherhood Creed. He was in the group. Shout out to Rhapmatic, who's also in that group. The dancers were off the hook, and I'm gonna say this is that if you weren't at certain clubs in LA, Southern California, during the era of late 80s, early 90s, you can't say shit about like LA not being hip hop, because I've heard it, you know, where it's like, oh, you go to LA for, you know, to get in on the movies. Like the real hip hop is in New York. It's like, I disagree with you. Real hip hop was fucking happening in LA and shit. Especially when it was really set in the late 80s and early 90s. Man, like the dancing that I saw was just phenomenal. It was just, I mean, it was just dope. I don't want to keep trying to articulate it. I've seen the best dancing coming from freestyle dancers from the late 80s and early 90s, and you can put this clip on your, you know, your whatever. Late 80s, early 90s, Southern California, LA, freestyle dancers don't get enough acknowledgement. They don't. Because there was some of the most creative and some of the dopest dancing I had ever seen.
The Far Side.
Well, there was just so many. For me, it was the Scheme Team. I keep referring back to them because they to me, were the foundation of LA freestyle dance.
Have you ever seen Party Line?
Yeah. With Nia Peoples?
No.
Oh, Party Machine. I'm thinking of Party Machine.
Yeah, there's a video called The Party Line.
Sorry, I was thinking about the Party
Scheme Team
Machine.
is on there.
Are you talking about North on South Street?
The Party Line. We'll watch the video when I get off of here.
Well, I know that as far as videos, Everlast, I Got the Knack, they're in that video. Of course, the Divine Style or Ain't Saying Nothing video. North on South Street, Scheme Team is in that. So that Scheme Team and Soul Brothers in Southern California, when that style came out, they seemed to be the most influential. Yeah. But there was also all these little crews, these tribes, like you said. Tribe this, tribe that. Locally, there was just so many good dancers. And the only time I ever saw that kind of energy resurface was when I first saw Lay Twins. Those two twin dancers.
The Les Twins?
Yeah, well, Lay Twins in French or whatever. Because even though they're entertainers and they put together, there was, when I've seen them freestyle, because I've judged a couple of their competitions when they entered here in LA. Their freestyle, open style competitions. I was judging a couple of them. I felt that same energy, you know, and it's just God energy. That's all it is. And I used to feel that from late 80s, early 90s hip hop. And you're talking to somebody that was there, like I said, from the early 80s till 2025. So what was the illest era for me? 1988 to 1993. And then in the mid and late 90s, there was a different kind of freestyler. You know, there was like that mid to late 90s freestyler, which was more like, you know, Dilla beats. You know, it's just kind of got a little more calm. But yo, the dancers of the late 80s and early 90s in LA, woo! And then you had like the breakers that were resurfacing. And from my perspective, just to flat out say it, there was never no division. I love poppers, lockers, breakers, freestyle dancers, housers. It's either it's appealing to me or it's not. Experimental type stuff, the breaking scene that was experimental. It's like it either appealed or it didn't, and it's like I just I liked it all. There was no division for me.
Right. You know, I want to share with you. I was coming out to Orange County, early '80s though, because I remember my dad was taking me to the Movieland Wax Museum.
Oh yeah. So Beach Boulevard.
I went in there.
Yeah. The Movieland Wax Museum, and then you walk this way. It's Knott's Berry Farm, and that's where the dancing was taking place.
Right.
So, right around that time, I started catching, like you said, K-Day and all that. But it was 1983, and I pulled we're gonna do a memorabilia episode, but I wanted to pull this out.